like, and that duck's dead.
Yeah, dead duck.
Rue done got that duck.
Load up.
On a hunt to celebrate her 50th birthday party, Rue Mapp found herself on a boat in a blind on San Francisco Bay, waiting for sea ducks. It was a present from her hunting mentor, Holly Heiser.
So I think I'll have enough for Jonathan's gumbo.
So is this your third?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, you can use the breast off mine too. We can count our ducks as a whole for the gumbo.
You can also have mine. I mean,
I still have plenty of time to get other grindable.
And oddly enough, Holly, Rue, and our sea duck captain, Melinda Dobbs, and I were all women who had come to hunting later in life.
But, like, I remember when you and I went hunting the first time out in Grizzly, and I heard shots from another blind. You know, it still made me a little jumpy, you know. And even, like, when we did that horrible dove hunt.
Rue is one of those women who seems to have done it all, and I'm not kidding. She's a National Geographic Fellow. She's on the Wilderness Society board. She's the chair of the California State Park and Recreation Commission. She also once took Oprah for a hike. And years ago, she founded Outdoor Afro, an organization that turned into a national movement intended to help reconnect Black people to the outdoors. But Outdoor Afro doesn't really include hunting, not as a formal part of it. So one of Rue's latest challenges is more of a personal one. She's learning to hunt. It began a few years ago in her late 40s after a friend suggested she listen to a hunting podcast. It really started to open up a new world to her, even though when she thinks about it, it also was a reconnection to her childhood and to where she came from. Okay, awesome. So, thanks so much for this. We met on a 50th birthday present sea duck hunt. What made you decide, as a successful, incredibly busy woman and mother in her late 40s, to learn to hunt?
Wow. I mean, well, first of all, the sea duck hunt that Holly gifted me was, definitely not ever on my bucket list for birthday presents in life. But I will say that it was a really nice opportunity as part of the continuum of learning that I'd experienced with Holly that we got to share together. And for me, it wasn't so much about deciding to learn how to hunt as like a one big bang kind of experience or idea. It really was it was a result of this constant nagging that had been a part of my work with Outdoor Afro for, I'd say, since the beginning. Every time I talked about Outdoor Afro, describing like my background, how I was shaped by my family, I always talked about hunting and fishing. And I just shared that so naturally. But as time grew on, I realized that that was a part of my story and a part of the why of Outdoor Afro that had not yet had a light shone on it. And there were opportunities that I saw out in the world of Black people hunting and fishing. I actually started a Facebook group called Black People Hunting and Fishing that I started 8 years ago. And it was just as a way to start the conversation and attract more people who looked like me into sharing as they had with Outdoor Afro. But it was really hard to actually penetrate into the network of actually getting to hunt. And it wasn't until I had been turned on to the Steve Ranella podcast by a colleague on a board I served on, just casually over drinks one night talking about podcasts we listened to. And she's like, yeah, you should listen to Meat Eater. And I did. And when I heard it, I got it. I mean, I don't even remember what the episode was about, but what I got was, here's a person who is working to reshape the narrative of who we imagine gets out and hunts. And I, too, had the same purpose in my work to help reshape who we imagine gets outside in nature. And so I was, very, very much inspired by that. I sent, a very heartfelt note, and that set into motion all the things leading up to the moment where we find ourselves in right now, with Holly and I connecting after I actually did the podcast, to having just so many more people who heard the podcast, who understood exactly what I was trying to do, and who just reached out with so much hospitality and welcomed me into the hunting community. But it even with all of that, I mean, and there's more I could tell you about my starts and stops around actually getting out to hunt, but that was the biggest lever that really opened up what really wanted to come out for a long time.
That's super interesting, and I really like this idea that it had sort of been nagging. You've described yourself as a born again hunter before. Or tell us a little bit about that, like what hunting was a part of how hunting was a part of your childhood, and why there was that siege. There's a lot of people that hunting's just not even a little bit on their radar, right? So tell us about where that seed came from.
Yeah, I mean, for my parents, hunting and fishing came naturally, and they built their lives and their lifestyle around that. We had a 14-acre ranch about 100 miles north of Oakland, where we lived, and that was where my parents were able to do all kinds of outdoor activities, but hunting and fishing was a regular part of that. And so I had the benefit of receiving, from, experiencing food on the table all the way into the processing of the animals as a young child. And I remember how much variety of food that I ate. I remember looking at a bowl and knowing that was squirrel and gravy over rice. So experiencing that kind of variety in my diet was also something that I felt a hunger for in my adult life, where everything is just chicken, pork, fish, right? And it all tastes the same, and not really, you being familiar with where your food comes from or what it really is supposed to taste like. And so Outdoor Afro is almost this tribute to my upbringing. My parents are no longer living, and it's been a real special journey of rediscovering them, my childhood, but also for me to be able to share those values and those opportunities with people who may not have grown up in a family like mine, who need a welcoming presence of an organization or a person to say, yeah, this is okay for you to try. And we can learn and try it together. Even on the Outdoor Afro side, I'm not some pro climber or hardcore backpacker, but I find that when it comes to outdoor experiences, you don't have to know everything in order to bring other people along. You just have to know a little bit more than they do. And so that's how I've been able to continue to learn and grow in this community. And that born again is really about reconnecting to what I already came from, but also there's this larger awareness that this is how Black people and many people in early America functioned. I never like to pretend that I've invented something. Black people, we're always getting outdoors before Outdoor Afro. Outdoor Afro just is we stand on the shoulders of so much tradition around being able to have ease in nature. And the same thing's true for hunting. I'm not coming out here like I've invented it, but there's an opportunity that I find, especially as I've, grown my network. I have an organization behind me where I can help expose and support people at a different scale that I'm privileged to have.
And how will hunting fit into Outdoor Afro, do you think? We've talked a little bit about that, but do you see hunting as becoming then a part of Outdoor Afro also, or is this more of a personal journey for you, or a little bit of both at some point?
Yeah, I think people, depending on who you talk to, would love for Outdoor Afro to be about hunting too. But I think that we're not quite there yet as a society to just be cavalier about doing that. There's a lot that goes into hunting, for instance, firearms, opportunities, to actually do it, understanding the rules, the regs. that takes up a whole organization in and of itself. It's not like, oh, let's go ahead and throw on some hiking boots and go on a trail for 40 minutes. No, hunting doesn't involve that kind of, pedestrian involvement at all. So I think there's two pieces of it. If you're going to do it right, you've got to really create some dedicated space to a hunting conversation. Are there people a part of Outdoor Afro who already hunt, who want to hunt? Absolutely. There's an incredible synergy there of interest, but also synergy around the conservation ethic that, the hiker and the hunter share alike. So I feel that my need to make Outdoor Afro kind of take in the hunting conversation is not there, because I want to give hunting its due, and I also want to respect where people are, and maybe, and this is what I'm finding is happening kind of more casually, that people who want to hunt, they know that I'm hunting, and they know that I'm like hosting this annual Black Heritage Hunt in January, and they're welcome to come. But it's not an Outdoor Afro event, because we're giving some really focused and dedicated time to talk about hunting, which is a very different kind of experience than, and I think the same thing would be true as if you'd ask me, is Outdoor Afro going to be a expedition organization? There's some organizations that's what they do. They go and do, the 7 summits, and and that's a very different kind of an organization that would require just different infrastructure, and let's not even talk about the liabilities on that. And so I think Outdoor Afro serves the Black American community best by being an outdoor generalist organization.
You mentioned the Black Heritage Hunt. What are how is that set up? What are you doing with that? And what are your hopes for it?
Yeah, I mean, the Black Heritage Hunt was set up by, like, when I met Holly, we fell for each other immediately. We both knew, like, there was a lot that she cared about as someone who'd spent years helping women to become more comfortable in hunting. And she's such a brilliant and just she's so good at teaching people really hard things. And so she had her own experiences working for a conservation organization, seeing from the inside the challenges they experienced connecting with groups that were not, already a part of their network. And she just, from her background, that has lots of, diverse, intimate relationships, she really got where I was coming from. And I, don't have the same level of technical knowledge and expertise that she had about firearms and practicing and, and even, the breakdown, particularly of ducks and doves, for me to be able to lead that part of the conversation. So it was just a wonderful way for two people who, cared about the same things, who brought different but complementary skill sets to bear and create a signature event that's just really kind of in a lot of ways, it's a demonstration event for us to bring together community, which I know how to do, and just have this conversation and action that celebrates the history of hunting in Black America. And we're bringing in, again, this is our second one we're doing in January 23. We're bringing in Jonathan Wilkins, who is one of the most brilliant people I know, to speak about the Black experience in the hunting realm in America. And he'll be, doing some cooking demos and hunting with us and really helping to bring forth not just the activity of hunting, but let's talk about our why. Our why now and our why for the future. And so it's, Black Heritage Hunt, totally separate from Outdoor Afro, but absolutely informed, by the experience, obviously, that I have with knowing how to get people together.
Yeah, it's been really cool to hear about that. And that, talking about community and bringing people together. And one of the things that I've really enjoyed talking to you about is partly because our world feels so polarized and everything feels so divisive, and so much of you is finding common ground and getting people to come together. And what role has hunting played in that? I mean, I don't know that if you ask the average person, hey, is hunting a way to bring diverse groups together? I don't know that the answer would necessarily be yes. If you asked just a non-hunter that question, but how has hunting helped you in that way, or how has hunting sort of shown you ways of bringing people from diverse backgrounds together?
Yeah, that's a great question. I almost want to, you know me, Christine, and I want to put a t-shirt together that says, do not ask me about diversity. Because I don't, that's not the motivation for my work at all. Because I feel like diversity just, I don't know, it's not really, there's no there for me in the way that connection exists, between humans, that we always have the opportunity to build on or to create. And so from where I sit with hunting is interesting, because one of the things that I did notice, and this was in 2019, so this is like before the country kind of blew up around COVID and after George Floyd's murder, and so I wasn't, reaching out to Steve Vernella and say, hey, y'all need to be more diverse, that was not my charge. My charge was about my personal kind of inflection point. But I also at the time had enough experience, as we all had, with so much division that was happening. And I had some kind of clue that there was a way that I could just connect with more people. And it has turned out to be absolutely true and beyond even any expectations I had, that I've been able to connect with people who may look different than me, who come from different parts of the country than I come from, who may have different political ideas, affiliations even, than I might. But when we get together and we're in the blind together, we are a unit. Okay? We are we have each other. There is nothing more tight than your blind partner and you, where you're all focused on the goal, and that's of course to keep you safe, from how you handle your gun around each other to making sure that you're able to be successful in whatever you're hunting, and cheering on and giving way for the other person to be successful. That kind of give and take and watchfulness and engagement. And then the conversations, how you just start talking about life, and, and you start noticing things in the wild and pointing them out to each other. And there is just something incredibly intimate that happens in hunting experiences that you cannot replicate in just a passing interaction with people. And so, there's this anthropological term called deep hanging out that I learned from Malcolm Margolin, who was the head of Heyday Press. And he wrote a story about deep hanging out. And it's just about the ways that we really get to know people through just hanging out. And hunting, because of how many hours that are usually involved, all the prep that's usually involved, there's a lot of deep hanging out. And I think that once we deeply hang out with people, we connect with them. And, there's people I may never really hang out with in the future, because maybe it was just a one hunt opportunity. But there's something in me that feels connected to them, and almost a friendship that got started that will be with me for a lifetime. And it has really helped for me, kind of in a lived experience, it's really helped me to soften some of my viewpoints and prejudices that I might be carrying around because of what you might hear and see on social media, or what your friends and family might be thinking about or talking about. And now I have my own treasure trove of connection that has just really helped me to connect with people.
Yeah, that's awesome. You have the whitetail story. Can you tell us about when you were hunting whitetails in Wyoming?
Yeah, I mean, here I am with like this, descendant of Vikings kind of a guy. Okay. And, and he stuck with me through, a few days of sits and everybody else in my group tagging out. And, he told me later he was worried that we weren't going to make it. And we had, a couple of moments where, it looked, if you were, a gambling person, I'd probably not bet on me getting a whitetail, but literally like in the last 5 minutes of shoot time on the last possible day of shooting in Buffalo, Wyoming, I shot my deer and it face planted at 200 yards, one shot, because it was like 5 minutes left of shoot time when it happened. We were, having the darkness descend on us fairly quickly. And so as we were walking, we were losing our sight, and there were all these logs on the ground, and he kept glassing, looking for the deer, because we couldn't see it. And he had seen it face plant, but we couldn't see it with all the debris. And as we got closer, he stopped, he froze, and he pulled his binos down, and he looked at me and shone this like 1,000 megawatt smile. And that's when I knew I was successful. And we just embraced, and it was like, and it was our buck. Okay. Like that was our moment. And he was just so great and sweet. And, I'll just never forget that moment. But if you just, passing by on the street, he and I, what other experience could create that level of joy and connection than a hunting experience, especially one that was so, hard won.
And you didn't have that easy of a start either.
Nope.
It wasn't like you didn't just decide to become a hunter and then go on this successful whitetail hunt in Wyoming.
No.
Your first hunt was doves, and your first hunt story has probably, I do think it's the best first hunt story ever, largely because it's so real, and you stuck with it. So walk us through that dove hunt in Southern California in 130 degree heat or something. It was 100 degrees that day.
Yeah. It was ridiculous in so many ways, and funny. When of course everything's funny in retrospect. But this was the first time Holly and I were getting out to hunt together. We had actually gone and done a little practice shooting at the range, and she had a really great video that's still out there. You should look it up. Just type in Holly Heiser dove hunt, and she will really show off exactly why she's amazing.
Shoot times are 30 minutes before sunrise to sunset, and I personally have found that dove hunting is actually better in the afternoon, in the morning. So if you're one of those hunters who doesn't like getting up early, dove hunting is for you. You're going to love this.
But anyway, I was so drawn to do that experience. She had arranged for me and another colleague of hers to go, who I'd never met. And we get out there to the refuge in Los Banos early in the morning. We didn't draw a tag, so we had to, I guess, do a walk on, and that meant going later in the afternoon. And in that part of California, it's hot anyway, but in the summertime, late summertime, it's like hell hot. And I didn't know and appreciate how much we were going to be walking from the parking lot to the actual setup area. So it was about maybe a mile or so with all our stuff, the guns and chairs and all the stuff we needed. And so once we get there and set up, I realized I didn't have enough water because I pretty much had just like one small bottle. Total rookie mistake. This is the kind of stuff, I'm training people in Outdoor Afro to do, and then I don't even do it, right? Have enough water, okay? So, the person we were with said, I'm going to go back to the car and get some water. I was like, I'll go with you. We go out, and I'm pretty good with direction. Like, I know my landmarks, but I was trusting this person because I felt like they knew more than I did. They're experienced hunter. I should just follow. But after a while, I spoke up and I was like, you know what? I don't think we're going in the right place or the right direction. He was like, no, this is the way to go. So we kept walking in circles, and I'm getting more and more dehydrated. And this was my first time, and this is like, post George Floyd America, and I had all kinds of thoughts in my mind about the fact that I'm walking around here in an area with not a black person in sight. I've got a firearm, and I had noticed, like, as people were shooting, how jumpy I was. And I realized that I had had so many more imprints in my life from gun violence happening in the black community and the black body as the target of those gunshots. And so that was a more pressing imprint on me than hunting doves. And so I was trying to reconcile my kind of jumpiness and kind of, I'd experienced violence this kind of violence and death in my own family. And so it was visceral. And then, like, the guy next to me, the guy with me, he just shoots off a distress signal, like, with no notice, and shoots 3 times. And then then I saw this one hunter look at us like, what the hell? Like, what? And I immediately thought, I'm like, I could get shot out here. Like, here I am walking around here with a gun, and somebody could shoot me because this guy just decided to do something without letting me know what this is and why you're doing it. And someone could say she tried to shoot me and I get shot, Mm-hmm. And that would be a believable story, And so I was just like, man, I can't believe I'm out here like this. So eventually, we found, someone gave us a direction that worked. We had no cell phone service. By this time, I found out Holly was really nervous and concerned. She had heard the distress signal and didn't know where we were. And I'm literally just crawling by this time to the parking lot. And I get in the car and I put my seat down, and I was like, yeah, I'm done for the day. And I heard that the other person we were with, wondered if I'd ever hunt again. And Holly was like, yeah, she's going to hunt again because she's built with a motivation that's bigger than this moment. And that's true, and what it did, was really help me and Holly get clear about the things that we could help other people with, and Holly was like, yeah, I can teach about gun safety, and I can even talk about hydration and navigation. But that other thing you talked about getting shot and being out here and how it feels as a black woman being out here with a bunch of white people with guns. She's like, I don't know how to have a conversation about that. And so that's when we, were, able to really understand how we could come together and make a difference for people.
Yeah, that and you did. I mean, most people would just gone, well, I tried hunting. That was my experience. Now I'm moving on. And you just didn't. You just kept going.
Well, I mean, I'm built of more than. I mean, I'm built of the stuff that, my ancestors. When I think about my ancestors and like everything they endured and how hard they worked when life was like really, really hard for Black people, and they still persevered, I just take these opportunities like by the horns and feel grateful that I have them.
And hunting can humble a person too. I mean, in addition to the dove hunt, but how has hunting been a humbling source for you, as I think it has? I mean, no person can hunt and not find it a humbling experience, but what has that been like for you?
Yeah, I think for people who are coming into hunting as an adult, I think it's even more humbling because by the time you're an adult, you're probably good at a few things. You know, you're probably a good writer, you're probably a good worker, you're probably a good carpenter. I mean, there's a lot of things that time will allow you to be really good at as an adult. But hunting does not work that way. You can have all the right gear. You can have all your ultralight stuff on. you can have your water. You can have the location. You can be very well practiced with your gun. You can have everything right, you know, and the animals are still going to do what animals do. They're going to still detect you, or they may not even show up at all. So you may have spent all of that time and effort, and you won't produce the kind of results that we're so accustomed to getting results from when you say study for a test, you get an A or a B. There's none of that. You know, like I can compare my two turkey experiences, which were like night and day. Like I went out one morning with hunters of color who were amazing, scouting this perfect, you know, scene to get turkeys. And I got out there and had a Jake in like 20 minutes. And people kept asking me like, tell me about your hunting experience. I was like, well, I just showed up and shot one. But no, my second one, 3 days, 3 days, 3 days and some, you know, hard misses in there until I finally shot one and killed it. And that gave me a very different experience, and it almost didn't happen. Yeah, I mean, hunting is it's gonna show you what you're made of, because it's not going to just give you what you want off of a grocery store shelf just because you have the money.
Yeah. Where's your next hunt?
You know, that's a good question. I think I want to get back out into the Central Valley and shoot some doves.
This is great. Is there anything that you can think of that you want to leave listeners with?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's important for us to just, you know, not think about diversity. You know, let's think about connecting with people. And people often want to know, like, the difference they can make in their own lives, in their own sphere of influence. And I think it starts with an invitation. It starts with an invitation and asking, you know, someone, because I invite people all the time, you know, and some people tell me flat out, no, like, I have no interest in that whatsoever. I'll eat meat, but I don't want to know anything about where it comes from. And then there's some people, so keep asking people. And if someone's intrigued enough, you know, have them come and sit with you at a deer stand sometime, you know, or just have them come join you as a non-shooter. Because it's a lot. It's a lot to be learning as an adult, you know, when some of our learning parts are maybe a bit atrophied. And so, you know, keep inviting people and keep welcoming people too.
The Outdoor Life podcast is edited and produced by Senior Deputy Editor Natalie Krebs. This episode of the podcast was hosted and reported by Christine Peterson. You can read her written profile of Rue Mapp on OutdoorLife.com. Music in this episode is by Simon Brown via APM Music.